in November of saying we recommend A, B or C. I just want to get that clarification, please, because that's what I'm hearing around this table with some of the councillors.
Through you, Madam Chair, we're not saying that that will or will not be. What we will present is the report back from the work that is going to be undertaken.
Thank you. Also, Chair, and just to make my comments, I agree with Councillor Watson. I agree with Councillor Watson and also Councillor Walker around where this blame should be put and on whose feet, and that's the government's, definitely. And now, if you want to look at if you want to look at the transport levy, I mean north, I mean seal extensions, Albany Highway, Warkworth improvements, Hobsonville, Whenuapai, and Huapai growth project, Silverdale Park and Ride, bus interchange. That's where the transport levy is going to. I mean, I can rattle off, everybody knows that. Now, Councillor Crum mentioned around all the information that we receive and then bad decisions end up being made. Well, definitely in June there was a bad decision being made by 9 councillors across this room. So, Chair, for me, I'm actually looking forward. I'm looking forward to this report.
You are.
I'm looking forward. Thank you. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to this report. The reason I'm looking forward to this report, Chair, is the fact that I'm hoping that when we get it back in November, that there will be information in those reports around our review and coming back to us in confidential, that there is information in there to justify why we should be holding on to some or all of the assets, whether they be pensioner housing and everything else. That is where I will be basing my decision on, is when those two end up coming back, the reports are coming back. So, Chair, for me, I look forward to this report because, for me, I will be making my decision based on that confidential report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pity we hadn't had a workshop on this report. No, I went to the meeting for councillors on Tuesday, and there was 4 of us there. 2 of us to start with, and then 2 more turned up. I would have liked to have really got more understanding as to what this whole thing. But it's obvious that to me, that the recent rates debate, where it was very close, touch and go, has really focused the minds of councillors on this particular aspect of our business, and it's really the central issue of our business here. And I think the feedback that we're getting from ratepayers now have really kind of pushed this matter along in the way it has. So I think that's been very helpful. I just want to talk to Councillor Lee asked where the Diversify Investment Fund is. Well, I think he robbed that or raided the cookie jar there when he bought the 20% back of Auckland Airport and delisted the company.
No, that was a special dividend. That was a special dividend from the port that paid for that.
It was
no, that was not raided.
It was 170 million went out of that into that.
Oh no, it did not, George.
It
did not, George.
Madam Chair, this has got absolutely nothing to do with the report.
This is great TV.
You sold your own airport shares.
So anyway, I just like to also bring up on what Councillor Darby said to clarify the ledger there. He said that when he arrived at North Shore Council in 2004, we'd just sold the airport shares. Well, if he thinks that just selling them back in 2000 was just selling them when he arrived, I think he's mistaken there. And I think when you look at the financial considerations of what work North Shore City had done in that intervening time, I think the $90 million that we received for that sale really pales into insignificance when you look at the huge amount of work that we were doing on capital projects on the North Shore in transport, public transport, and wastewater, because I think we did a pretty good job in relation to those matters. But I think that this report really now puts the costs of this council under the proverbial microscope, and I think that's really an excellent will be an excellent outcome from this work. And the one area that I hope that we're going to be looking at is the area of what amount we can take from a targeted rate. because the Mayor has got this thing about keeping the uniform annual general charge very low.
Oh, here we go.
385, and Councillor obviously Philippine agrees with that. But
700,
I think we should also look at the Shand report, because we're talking about being lateral in our thinking in relation to council funding for the future, and this is the biggest council in New Zealand, and I think that one of the areas that our communities are now telling me about, and I think probably telling other councillors, is that we've got to get more involved in making sure that people pay on a user charge basis, and that's what the Shand report precisely said. Up to 50% of the funding could come from targeted rates, as opposed to what we have at the moment. And you know, it's pitiful. We were going to go up to 500, but councillors welshed on that deal, or even, and it was said that we could have gone up to 900.
Yes.
So you know, I think that there's a lot that could come out of this in the future. Now, councillors have said, Councillor Watson said, why isn't the government chipping in? Well, you know, in 2004, the government of the day did chip in and put $1.62 billion of funding for transport projects from the Crown account into Auckland, and that was over 10 years. Now, I would say that that's the kind of initiative that this council should be looking at.
Was that Labour?
And I don't know which government
think
it was. There was maybe Councillor Philippine, but whichever government it was.
I think it was Labour.
We obviously need to get
like
a
their
better
foreign policy.
dialogue,
They've got a great foreign
dialogue
policy.
with the government, and because it's as night follows day, it really is very apparent that our relationship with the government must improve, and because we have some major ticket items that we have to fund, and I think that should be one of the areas that we look at in this report. So I hope that we're looking at the Shand report and the what dialogue and what work we have with the government, and I'm very pleased to hear that all matters are on the table, including the money we have invested in Auckland International Airport Limited, and how we configure the ports of Auckland in the future, because that's an area that I've been very concerned about since the days of the Auckland Regional Council delisting the company, the Ports of Auckland. Shares at that stage were about $8, I think, a share. $8 is what they paid for when they bought the shares back. The value of that share, that company has eroded, but at the same time, Tauranga has gone ahead leaps and bounds.
Oh.
And that company was
George, I do remember knocking on the door asking for more money for your busway shortfalls, and we did. We bailed you out, George. Don't worry.
Short
No, you
sighted,
can't hear it.
George.
It's gone up from...
We bailed out several times.
Short-sighted.
Councillors, can I ask
we-
that you keep to the subject? I apologise to the members of the public and everybody else who's watching this, because it is actually, we are endorsing an approach, an associated process to review Auckland Council's mix of alternative financing sources.
Okay.
All we've had is yelling and screaming across the chamber, like you were actually, I mean, if I feel like I'm back teaching in intermediate school, actually, with some of the behaviour today. So can we actually focus? You are running a billion-dollar business here. Please focus.
Okay, I'm focusing on the issues, and lost the train of thought. But we really go back. I'm really going back to the Tauranga port vis-a-vis Auckland, where their shares are now, Tauranga's shares are now well over $17 value, and the Auckland is, well, we're not on the share market, but the Tauranga market capitalisation is 2.4 billion, and when Auckland delisted, our market cap was substantially better than Tauranga.
Yes, but I keep telling you, don't you understand? We took the Wynyard Quarter, the whole of Wynyard Point off the ports of Auckland. Can't you figure that, George, yet?
Can you take a deep breath?
So,
For waterfront
so I
Auckland.
think these are important considerations. When you say that we're behaving like children,
Well, you are.
I think that there are important matters, very important matters. And, you know, we as a council, it's important that we debate these with some vigour. And if people are
Keep to the facts, though, please.
putting up issues that, or matters that don't stand scrutiny, well, I think we should be debating them and outlining where those matters don't stand scrutiny.
And when you have the report back is when you will be doing that. Thank you.
This council would be
Clow,
bankrupt
then
down
Councillor
to you.
Stewart, and then I'm going to ask
We'll have no
Councillor
rates.
Hoss to close the debate.
Come on.
Very small. Okay, Councillor Clow.
I just noticed the chair, when he corrected Councillor Lee before, which I didn't disagree with, for having a dig at the Chief Executive. Councillor Cooper then made a slur on the journalist involved, which is Bob Dew, who's a man, a very respected journalist, and I think that councillor should think about going up and saying something to him after the meeting. So I'll just introduce
Make a
that.
correction, just a correction. I was talking about what I heard on the national radio this morning, Madam Chair. I have not read anything that Mr Day has written.
Thank you.
I was
Clow.
talking about the questions asked by Guy and Espinay, not
Thank you.
Bob. So I apologise, Bob, if you felt it was you, but it wasn't you I was talking about.
Thank you. Councillor Clow.
So like Councillor Casey and several other councillors, I am pretty uncomfortable about us looking at some of our core community-owned assets like libraries, and I hope that the two consultancies that we do bring on are not ideologically driven over assets like that, because that would be disappointing for, I think, around the table for just about all of us. However, I am more comfortable with us looking at our commercial assets, car parks, and yes, shares, etc., because I do believe it's our fiduciary duty to actually have this work done, and therefore I will be supporting it. But I would like to make sure that the CFO is briefing them on several things. One is that we look pretty carefully at the existing comparative returns that we're getting on our assets, and it's not just the port and its dividends, and it's not just the airport and its asset growth and its dividends, but yeah, the car parks and any other commercial assets that we have, because there's no point in some ways of flicking stuff that's just a damn good gold mine long term, both as an asset on the balance sheet and the returns we're getting. I think it's important that we look at the existing revenue streams and the effect on the balance sheet, because it's all very well to divest large assets that could become much more valuable over time, but it then does start to affect the balance sheet for a short-term gain. Selling the family silver means basically you can't use it again, and that's never really been the most sensible thing to do. And even the government, when it's been selling Meridian, Mighty River, etc., has been ensuring it's keeping half of it, or approximately half. But probably a key one for me, because I've been one of the few that, and when talking about the ports, Councillor Cashmore has, I believe, been supportive of is that we actually brief the consultancies on the wisdom of looking at a northern port strategy, which is effectively a national port strategy, because you don't, keep saying again, we do not need to sell the port. We could merge the port in with a publicly listed company like Ports of Tauranga and hold our holding, don't have to sell a thing. But I like, maybe Councillor Wood, but there is no question Ports of Tauranga has increased its capitalisation by 17 times since the shares were issued at $1. They're now over 17, pretty consistently at 17, and yet our port operation, its value has increased only 3 times in that same time period. So I would be creative. I would like to think that we could be creative, and if it got down to something like the ports being privatised, it doesn't mean to say we have to sell it. We can hold on and therefore then get the increased returns and hopefully get the increased value on that investment, which I believe is desperately needed. So that's all I'll say. I'll support this. It is a report coming back and we make the decisions later.
Thank you, and can I remind councillors again, we are not talking about selling anything at this stage. And we keep coming back to that all the time. Councillor Stewart.
Can I, no point of order there, I would just actually, you keep saying that all the time, but the important thing is how Sue, Ms Tyndall, actually briefs these consultancies. It's not telling them what the end thing's going to be, it's how the briefing is done. Yes. That is really crucial. We're allowed to make our points around that.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. I think
you know what privatised means?
Sorry. I think Councillor Clow is correct. We need to make sure that the two firms of